Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. We're going on a big trip today. Well, it all started, I guess, when I learned out at Pottsville that our 10th anniversary show that we had some resident quilters in our group. And in fact, they've made so many quilts, and it's a husband and wife team, and I'd like you to meet Milly and Orley Ringering.
Hello.
Now, Orley, you've been on before, but that time you were bragging about that T-shirt, right?
About birds and gardens.
Birds and gardens. Now, how does a guy you've already planted gardens for the...
Yes, I've planted
The snow's
some
hardly
things.
melted.
I have 2 kinds of onions planted, spinach planted, peas planted, and I have some lupins planted that I bought at Prince Edward Island last year, and I have 118 hills of corn planted, but it is covered.
Oh, that's how you keep it from
Just in case we have a frost.
Now, Milly, are you into this gardening thing also?
Well, a little bit. I only have 400 rose bushes and 100 mini roses.
How do you guys keep the deer from, and the little chipmunks and the little moths and things from eating your gardens?
Well, Orley built some fences.
Now, do you have double fence, Orley?
Just high fences.
How high is high?
Oh, like 7 feet
And that'll keep them out.
most of the time.
Well, the upper rose garden has a higher fence than that.
Yeah, the upper rose garden, I had to go about 9 feet before they quit going in that one.
Ah, well, I understand if you can even put 2 low fences, they see that as a real blockade. I'm going to go way back. When I was out at Pottsville, this is the portrait of Debs, and this is our friend Bob Heisler, who's been with Better Life TV since early days, and they were standing there talking about Pottsville and Pottsville history, and 10 years ago, when this show started, Debs was just a natural to have on, and he was my guest on 4 or 5 occasions. He got to, in his own words, record things, and so he said, Bernie, anytime you want to use the place, you just let me know. So it was kind of his dream and my dream to have a function with Better Life Television, and we invited people through phone and television and radio and on the newspaper to come out to Pottsville. Some of the guests that I invited to come and share their things, the Historic Society and the people from Young People's came about the school. And you folks came and brought a ton of stuff. What did you bring?
I
Quilt
think it was
tops.
quilts.
Quilts, yes.
How many quilts?
Oh, just a few.
Now today you've brought how many?
I really don't know. Maybe a dozen or 2.
Yeah,
About 4 armloads.
I mentioned 5 quilts. But folks, as you see, let's talk about a quilt. This one almost looks like Chinese, Japanese, or African print. How do you put them together? I mean, how do you know what colors you want to put together? Whose job is that?
Milly's very good at colors. When she was in grade school, the teacher even had her teach art because she was so good at art.
Oh, so there's other kinds of art that you do besides quilt tops.
Few. I drew at least 40 pictures for Orley's newspaper articles on birds in the Courier.
Now, Orley, you write the article, and you, Milly, do the artwork?
I finally flunked out on it. He'd give it to me in the morning, and I had to have it at Courier at 12:30, all drawn up, and I finally couldn't do it anymore.
Well, you aren't real youngsters, are ya?
Well, no, we're over the hill.
Okay, that means that you are in the Social Security camp with the rest of us. I like this one because this just seems to be a quilt in process. Look at the back of it. Let's show off the underside. And every piece seems to have the same, what do you call it?
Laid flat.
It's seams. Those are seams, all iron flat.
And this is the margin? Is
Yeah,
that
the seams.
You know, if I were sewing this, I'd have some with a little wide seam, wide margin and a little narrow one.
No.
You don't have anything. Every point is perfectly come together. I wanted to show the back side. How hard, I mean, can you compare this with your first quilt? How many have you made?
Well, I would have no idea.
Oh, in your house, how many do you have right now?
Well, Trudy one time counted 80 quilt tops that I had made.
And so they're waiting for you to quilt?
Oh, I haven't given them all of my quilts to quilt yet.
I think she said she had 250 quilt tops in the trunks.
Those are some that I bought.
Oh, but one of these you said this is really old material.
Yeah,
Show-
this is old. It's like an antique quilt that he quilted, the antique top.
You mean somebody had this in their trunk?
Mm-hmm. We bought it, and I finished it to make it look like an old quilt.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because I just happened to have brought my own old quilt here.
Really?
It was a grandma kind of project who never got finished.
Oh.
And I was telling Orley how difficult it was. I'd started quilting by hand, and I found out that after I went about 2 inches, I'd already made mistakes. Because sometimes you go this way, zigzag, and then other times you go in circles. The whole thing is kind of crazy. What's a crazy quilt?
Well, I
don't
have
have
a
one.
few of them.
I don't think we brought one
I didn't
along.
bring any. I should have brought one.
What's it mean to be a crazy quilt?
Well, it's usually made out of scraps of material sewed together in alternate patterns, you know, just no pattern really at all.
A pattern that's no
Just a
pattern.
lot of pieces
Yeah.
put together.
Yeah.
Now, besides your birding show and besides your quilting, you're very happy to come and show off things, right?
Pretty much.
Out at Pottsville, that day that we had our 10th anniversary for the TV shows that interviewing people in local community, your friends and neighbors, you did you brought quilts. And I have a little film here I'd like to show everybody about the ring-a-rings at Pottsville. And we'll see just how they show these off. I think you brought a whole truckload that day, didn't you?
We brought a bunch.
Even had a friend come along and help out. Let's just look at the way that you have. There you are, Millie.
Yeah.
And Orley, standing in the midst of, you hung them on everything. I love that one with the frogs.
Yeah. He made 4 of those.
For kids
Yeah.
or for big kids?
Whichever.
Now, what's this one?
Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark. This is outstanding. What do you call that one, Orley?
Texas Star, wasn't it?
Yes.
A 80-year-old lady in Texas made that top, and I bought it from her
And then,
and made a quilt out of it.
so you're not opposed to sharing the good stuff. It is beautiful top.
She said this is the last quilt top that I'm going to make.
Now, this looks like a trip to the zoo.
Yeah. We call those cheater cloth.
Because,
It's printed like that, and he just quilted on the lines.
so those aren't all quilt pieces
No,
like
it isn't.
this.
It isn't a bunch of pieces put together. It's
Now
one
what-
big piece of
What's
material.
this one?
This is another cheater cloth one, especially beautiful material, and I fix it with borders on it.
Because some of these others, like the one that, this quilt, it's just tiny little pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And what's this about?
I use that on the quilts to make a star pattern.
It's a template.
Like on a big block, I'll set it in there and go around it with my machine.
And why does it sandpaper?
That keeps it from sliding on the material.
Oh, what a good idea. And once you get that done, then comes this process. Describe this for me.
I'm running the machine there, and it's on the straight parts, and I use that straight edge to keep everything going straight.
Oh.
There's a gamma straight edge.
It's down in the box.
Yeah, it's in the box.
Well, you've got things like this.
That's-
This is the tools of your trade.
That's another pattern I go around on. Some quilts have a big square, and you just set that in there and go around it to make that pattern in the middle of the big square.
Orley, you make it sound easy.
I just saw those out on my scroll saw or on my bandsaw.
But who draws up the patterns for you?
Millie makes the patterns.
Oh, so, yeah, I see that, Millie. Pop, pop, pop.
And this is what I use to cut out the blocks with. This is and I have a cutting tool that
A
I
roller
use.
cutter.
A roller wheel?
Yeah, it's down in the box too. But
There are things like this that look like works of art to me. This could be a stained glass window.
it's over there. I made up the pattern myself.
And that quilt is here,
It is. It's
draping over one of these chairs.
on the left.
Oh, now is that the purple one?
The purple one, uh-huh.
Now, who would think of putting purple and green together?
My daughter Kathy, after her house burned down, she said, I need some quilts, Mom. So these are for her.
That's her colors.
And she gave me the colors and told me what she wanted, and I didn't know if I could do it, but that's what happened.
I am so impressed. Now, when you do something like this, are those individual quilts like squares like
Yes,
like
yes.
this one?
It's the second quilt there, the next one.
The green.
And so each one of those is
Yeah.
a square. And Orley, is that the quilt you're? No, there's a bunch of squares here you're working on.
That's it.
That's the one.
That's it. About how long have you been making quilts?
Well, my first toys were quilt blocks.
How so?
Her mom would sit her on the back of the bed while she was making quilts, and she'd play with the quilt blocks.
And so it was joy from the very start.
I would put 6 little hexagons together because she made flower garden blocks, and then later when she sewed them together and I got a little bigger, I stood there with the scissors cutting the little extra stitches in between, cutting them apart, helping my mother.
Now, what kind of machine did your mom have?
She had a treadle sewing machine.
Oh, you folks, can you remember a treadle machine and how you could just try to make your feet go faster and faster? It was more fun than an old pump organ. Reminded me of that.
I have one.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the cotton batting's out of date because it used to pack up and end up in one corner.
Yeah. Yes.
What a invention this was. What do you
Yes.
call it?
Batting,
Polyester.
polyester
The
batting.
polyester batting. And it comes in what widths?
Big enough for king-size quilts.
It'll come up to
110.
110 and 110 square.
Oh, so this is just a scrap.
That's cut off of the edge. It was too big, so I cut off the extras. But we save them because Orley even sewed some together to make bats.
But you have some little bitty quilts here. Just some.
Yes, that's a baby quilt.
This one's for a baby. Do you have a baby in mind?
Well, we have 18 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren, and so they keep producing more babies. So I try to have a few on hand just in case.
You don't want to wait 9 months and hurry up and get it. They each have names, right? Just give me, look around and point to a quilt and tell me the name of it.
Oh, I don't know. It's
Well, there's a
this
stack
is-
and whack over there.
Yeah.
This one right here?
Yes, that's stack and whack. These are stack and whack type. But I fussy cut them. I cut each one separately, each triangle, and then you move them around to see which way it looks the best, and then you sew it together.
Now, you mean you cut
6 of those.
6 of these to
Yes.
make it look like it was one piece of material?
Mm.
Have you ever thought of cheating?
Well, I don't
It
know.
wouldn't be nearly so much fun, would it? But they're just perfect. Look at this one. There's not a difference in any. You couldn't even tell that it was seamed together. Now this is whack
Stack and whack.
Stack and whack.
and whack. What's this one?
That's churn dash.
What's that mean?
Well, that's just what they named it, is churn dash. This
Well,
is
do
like,
you remember when you were little and your mom had you make butter in a big jar out of cream?
like this.
And there would be a thing and you'd turn it and it would have little blades on it, kind of like that, churn dash. And you'd turn it and it would make butter.
I've heard of dasher in the butter. That must
yeah.
be it. No, we didn't have a cow, so I never got to do that. But you did?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We made butter lots
From
of
what
times.
age were you making butter?
Oh,
Little bitty kid?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, long through those years.
That
Dad
was-
always had a cow, and we'd make our own butter and our cottage cheese and things.
And did you have the good fortune of being raised on a farm?
Well, we lived in town, but we had a cow. My brothers would take it down on the river bottom to eat every day.
And stake it out.
Now, what town was that?
That was Alma, Nebraska.
And where were you a kid, Orley?
I was born in Brainerd, Minnesota, but moved out here when I was 4 years and 8 months old and lived in Oregon most of the time since.
Okay, Oregon, here we are. Now,
I came on a trip to Oregon when I was 10, and I'm still tripping.
you love it.
Stayed here.
There is no way I could have told what this original material looked like.
Most people say, the adults say, "Isn't that pretty?" And kids, you know what they say?
What?
Teeth.
Right here.
Teeth.
They are teeth, but why?
Well, Orley was going to go on a bird trip, and I needed something to cheer me up, and I had all this Groucho Marx material. Didn't know what to do with it, so I made stack and wax out of it.
And look at that.
Here,
Here, the teeth end up looking like a beautiful
This is-
flower.
see Groucho Marx eyebrows and nose and everything?
Oh, no. Well, Orley, what's about this trip of yours?
My bird trip?
Yeah, 2 months with his brother off somewhere.
Oh, my brother's wife passed away. They live at Patsy Junction by Phoenix, Arizona. And he said, well, I just got to get away, and we're both bird watchers. So he said, I'm going to come and get you, and we're going to go on a bird trip. So we went all the way across the U.S. to Connecticut and visited his brother, or his daughter over there. I mean, his son and daughter-in-law there. And then we went up to New Brunswick and visited our sister that lives there. And she went with us to Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, and we traveled all around. And on the
How
way
many-
back home, we went all the way across Canada.
How many birds have you seen in your bird watching days?
I don't know, 463, 500, somewhere along in there. I added close to 200 on these 2 bird trips that we went on.
Oh,
One
my.
last year and one the year before.
Tell you folks, keep your eyes open. They're marvelous things. And there's a club that you belong to?
I have belonged to the Audubon Club here, Siskiyou Audubon Club. I was a charter member, but I haven't attended very much lately, but they still meet here.
In Siskiyou.
I was the president several different years and
So
went
if
on a
you
lot of
folks
field
ha-
trips.
If you folks have an interest in bird watching, there's an affinity group here, and I'm interested in cancer since I had mine, and there's an affinity group for that, and you can find people who have ham radio, computers, all kinds of things, Dorcas work. People like you, they'd like you to get together with them. Who is this and what is this?
Well, in one of my quilt magazines, I saw a picture, a small picture of this design, and I couldn't figure out what it was at first. But I finally figured out it was triangles. And so I drew up the pattern and sewed this up.
Was triangles and triangles and triangles
I
and triangles?
I sew all of the, I draw up all my own patterns and make my own patterns.
Well, I thought I'd have 5 quilts here, and I think that this is about 15 right now that I've gotten to see of your work, your handiwork. This is simply beautiful, but look at this multicolored corduroy of all things.
Well, I just can't throw anything away. That's jackets and shirts and blouses and things that I took apart and used just the good part and made that quilt. Like they make the old quilts, you know, they used used material.
Now, I'm going to ask you to show me your favorite one, Orley. What brings you delight when you're doing the quilting with this quilting machine? What brings the biggest smile to your face?
Oh, any of them. I like to do these with the lines going around. These here with you can go follow the lines around. They say quilt the ditch.
That's how they call it, huh?
Since I'm a carpenter, I keep getting mixed up, and I say I'm going to do the gutters, and Millie says, "No, it's the ditch."
There's a tradesman.
So-
Now, are you willing to take on this tremendous project with Aunt Tira's? She would be 100 and
It looks
Right
like
now.
nice old material.
I think it's pretty near brand new, but you can almost see the aprons and the bonnets and all these other things that this may have come from scraps. And when I started quilting myself, see, those are X's and these are straight lines, and what's more than I could do to try to straighten all that out. Orley, are you game to try?
I'll take a look at it.
Oh,
I've done a few that people said, "Well, I can't do it. Well, you see if you can finish this for me." I did one for a lady that was pretty tough. It was her niece passed away, and she inherited it, and she wanted me to do it for her, and I managed to do it. Got
now
it done
you've
for
got
her.
another challenge ahead of you.
I even did one for a lady that lives in East Jerusalem.
Oh, wouldn't that
She
be
said, "I'll bring you some more next summer." I think her daughter lives at Cave Junction.
Well, we're just down to a few minutes. Wouldn't you? It's a work of art project. Why this? What's it all about? What would you do with this thing?
I go around this with my machine, and it makes ocean waves or shell pattern. You just go around it with the machine, and you just keep moving it up your quilt Down
There's
there's
the sandpaper.
sandpaper on it to keep it from sliding on the material.
Was that your invention?
No,
The
Millie told me how to do that.
I drew up the pattern and he made it. I drew it on there and he
I
cut it
was-
out with a coping saw.
I had to saw it out with a coping saw.
Ooh, I like that. And the baby blanket too. Is there a baby on the way that you folks have a grandbaby?
They're great grandbabies now.
Aha. Well, I just want to thank you both for being such a support of Better Life Television. And we often see Orley behind the camera, or maybe sometimes sitting on this very seat telling a little bit about history. You have one comment about quilting that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I would like to say my life ambition is to have a quilt show, a real quilt show.
A stitch in time saves 9, somebody said.
Yeah.
She's had a couple small ones, but she wants to do a big one.
Well, you will invite us when you do your show, won't
Hope
you?
so. Yes.
We just have to find a place to do it.
Okay, well, I don't have a barn ready for you, but I'll look forward to the day when you've got it ready to pull out all the scraps. And now, you're looking for more fabric, or do you have plenty?
Oh, I love scraps.
Okay, well, you heard it here on Better Life Television. Thank you so much for coming with all your talents and show us how to do things. And you can even make nut butter
Yes.
and fruit. I bet you could put dried
Chop
apricot
up nuts for cookies.
for cookies. Thanks again for you both for being on Better Life Television. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and it is my privilege to see what makes them tick. All the folks around these parts. Oh, what a pretty picture quilt that is. Called what?
Well, it's a star quilt. I made up the pattern.
Originality. I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying thanks for tuning in, and Stitch in Time does save 9.